Let's mirror this torso. So as we work on it, one side is updated for the other side. So that way we have a nice attachment point for the arm and the leg as we go forward. So like we mentioned with the cylinder, we have these little triangle pie wedges at the top. Triangle pie wedges at the bottom have already been dealt with, but at the neck, we haven't dealt with them yet. Let's go ahead and do that before we mirror the side. So I'm going to right click and go to edge. Same thing as before. I'm going to get into a nice comfortable position. It's nice to go to where when I click on an edge, I know I won't accidentally grab anything down below it. So you can angle around using the Alt, left, and middle mouse button. Zoom in, so right here. And I'm going to grab all these internally. Again, Q, select lets you grab things without accidentally moving them. And then Control Backspace. That deleted the edges and got rid of that middle vertex. Let me undo that one more time. And if I just hit delete, you'll see there's a vertex right there. There's two edges there. Right click, go to vertex. See that little vertex? That can cause you a lot of problems. So you want to use Control Backspace to get rid of the edges and any unneeded vertices. So we should be able to cut this in half, 1 and 2, and all quads. All happy. 3D modeling for organic objects. Got to be all quads. So that is, again, I have the modeling toolkit still active up here. I go down here to multi-cut. I'm still in vertex mode. Grab this, click one time, go across. If I want to hit the center, hold shift, tap one time, enter. And then one more cut across the side here. Click one time, go to the middle, shift to center, let go of shift, go continue it, click one time, enter, and finish it off, hit Q. Voila. Go to face mode, 1, 2, 3, 4 quads. Beautiful. That's what we want. That gives us perfect topology in which to make detailed anatomy for the character. Okay, before we do the neck or attach the leg or the arm, let's mirror this torso so that it has two sides to it. So I'm going to go to W to move, and we want to mirror this side across the other side. So that's going to be done with a duplicate special. So edit, duplicate special. It has a settings box next to it. So it's Control Shift D, but we always use setting box, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate it and we're going to mirror it with the scale. I know this -1 scale vexed me when I first learned Maya, but -1 means it's going to be on the x-axis to the other side of it. And it's going to be an instance. So whatever I do to this side, it's going to update the other side. So we hit duplicate special, hit apply, and it does duplicate it wherever that pivot was in the center. And so you see, now we see how skinny our mannequin torso is, right? It's not nearly as wide as it needs to be, which is fine for right now because we just start off with a simple cylinder. So I hit apply. Whoops. No, we don't need more than one. My bad. Close. So yeah, be careful that you don't make duplicates more than one. It happens to everybody, veterans and beginners alike. So now that I have this, if I go to this vertex, this is one object. Yeah, this is a second object. If I go to object mode, but whatever I do to one, it will update because it is an instance. When I went to edit duplicate special, instance was turned on right here, and it's not a copy. A copy would duplicate it, but if I, with an instance turned on, whatever I do to one will update and make the other one update as well. So let's see how that works. So if I go over here to this object, I right click and go to face. If I grab this face here, you see the other one is being highlighted. If I move that face, the other one is also highlighted. So whenever you're working and you want to just work on one half of a model, you can always just delete one half and duplicate special over, mirror it, and you're fine. You can also, if I go to object mode, I grab this one, go to Q, Control plus Shift to add, grab these two together, and I want to combine them. This is in the modeling toolkit. You have to combine, separate, smooth boolean. Like this is really a good selection what they put here. These 12 buttons are just about all you need to know to make anything, which is nice. So I'm going to combine them together. So now they're one model. But if I go to edge mode, because they were two pieces that were put together, where this vertex is, if I go to move, it is not welded together. There's actually two vertices along this entire axis, the horizontal or vertical key line of this model. So if you have two halves that at the centerpiece have mirror or duplicated vertices. There's two shared space vertices at those points. What you want to do is grab all those vertices and go up here to edit mesh, and you need to merge any vertices that are sharing the same space. There's a settings box there. This is your threshold, your approximation, and this is in centimeters. I don't have any exact math for this. The default 0.01, I believe that centimeters work. So if they're literally sharing the exact same space in XYZ coordinate space, it's no problem. A lot of times they get shifted a tiny bit. You might have to play with this. But if I hit apply, and then I go back and click one time, if you click one time rather than marquee select, grabs whatever's in the space, right? But if you click one time, if there's two vertices there, you'll only get one or the other, and you'll see there's only one vertex there. So I can close that. The other way to test this out is to go to the smoothing algorithm in view mode. So if I hit the number 3 on my keyboard, 3 will smooth it. That's times 4. I forget what the default is, but anyway, it smooths it down times 4 or more. If I hit 1, it goes back to the low poly mode. And you can see here, if there's any problems at the seam here where the two sides were, it will give you a pucker mark. It'll kind of mess up on there. Okay, so let's go up here to the neck. And we can see with the neck here now, go to face mode. I can grab these faces. So grab this, go to Q, again, select Control Shift. Now, if I want to grab them faster, remember what we do. We just get into a nice view angle here, marquee drag across the top, grab what we want, Control to take away what we don't want. Very easy way to grab what we need. Now I can take this neck and I can go to W. I can scale this or translate that down. And what I'll do is, you have what's called the forward neck lean. The neck is not straight up and down. So what we don't want to do is you don't want to have necks that go straight up out of the torso. That's what almost every beginner does. I call it the stiff neck. So you don't want a stiff neck. So what you can do is you can go to E to rotate. You can rotate the forward neck lean forward just a little bit. And again, we're not doing anatomy yet, just preparing a tiny bit and letting you know what you will be doing more detail on. And perhaps the neck is a little bit thicker, so I'll go to R to scale in the center here and scale it out a little bit. And we're going to use another tool now. If I go back to the modeling toolkit, and the most used tool for me is the extrude tool. And I think that's pretty common. When you hit extrude, it's going to take these faces and it's going to pull them out and create new geometry from where you're at. Now, this tool can be fickle, so be careful when you use it. The arrows of the normals of the faces, that is which direction the faces are aimed towards. You'll see this looks like it's perpendicular to the surface here. Sometimes it's not accurate. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll just switch immediately over to W to move. And you got to just remember that there's faces in there. See that? They're trapped in there. And as you go up with the neck, generally the neck gets a little thinner. So I'll switch immediately over to R to scale. And move around here, grab the middle and just scale in just a little bit. Just enough where we connect the head to the neck. We're okay. And now we could take this torso and we can kind of scale out the torso wider, because we are wider. We're bipeds are wider than we are in the side view. We're more narrow, which is the opposite of quadrupeds. Quadrupeds are more narrow from the front view, but they're much wider from the side view when they're down. And we'll look at the difference between bipeds, and we'll look at the feline, ursine, and canine forms. We'll look at the cat, dog, and bear. We'll also look at some bovine and some other forms, herbivores, and we'll even look at some dinosaurs and some other shapes that are kind of fun. So as we widen this now, this leg's going to drop into this a little bit easier. And this arm is also going to drop in a little bit easier. So let's move the arm out of the way a little bit. And let's grab this torso and let's grab faces this time. So I'm going to go to right click to faces, hit Q, and I want the faces here. Whoops, I thought I had Q selected. But yeah, we want to grab all the side polygons here. And you can see we're having kind of a mess here. So here's where we need to go to the tool settings. So tool settings is right up here with the little hammer with the dots. Show hide tool settings. I put my tool settings over here next to my outliner. And when I go to the move tool, you'll see I have axis orientation set to world. We haven't talked about that yet. We have symmetry off though. If I turn the symmetry to object X, whatever I grab on one side is going to do the other. So it's a little bit like the duplicate special instance we looked at earlier. So now I can very carefully go to Q, select all the side polygons here on the cylinder of the torso, and I go to W to move, and I can scale that out. And I'm going to stop right there. I don't want to scale out the neck too much. You can see this guy's kind of a hero character or muscular characters. You have the big traps and whatnot, but we don't necessarily want that for most characters, right? It's kind of been overdone anyway with the Marvel superhero stuff. Now, I'm going to let go, hold on control to minus to take away, right? I'm going to keep pulling the lower part of the torso over. And you'll see now I'm getting where this quad's getting a little bit more even. This is still a long sliver quad. But let's add to our selection. Let's grab these guys here just a little bit. So I want to bring these out a little wider along with these other pieces we're working with. There we go. And just pull that out very gently. There we go. And you can see now I have just about an octagon shape for the leg down there. But the shoulder's looking a little strange at the moment. So right click, go to edge, and I can grab these edges up here and then take away, make sure I don't get any edges I don't want, and pull them out. After all, maybe we're gonna get the big traps after all, but we're gonna, again, we can add more in here and smooth it out, but we can't take away so easily, so I'm just gonna leave that as is for right now. Great, we're almost done. We're just going to put a little mitt for a hand, a little boot for a foot, a little sphere for a head, and you're going to have your first biped character to load into Mixamo and rig it and animate it and make it do whatever you want it to do, which is really fun. All right, so let's grab the arm here, right click, go to edge, double click that edge right there. Hit R to scale, and right now it's on world, so I'm going to go to object, so that way, let's see here. So there's other options to use here. The bridge tool is really useful. So the bridge lets you go from one edge to another and actually creates a polygon in between them. You can also use the pivot tool here. So right now the pivot's at the center of the cylinder that was originally made. If I go to the move tool, hold down D. D is an interactive edit pivot mode. So you have the tool settings set here for the move. And sometimes you need to hit the reset button. So it's good to know that your tool tab, outliner, tool tab, human IK. My right side, attribute editor, modeling toolkit, channel box layer. These are your 5 main interfaces. You want to know where these 5 interfaces are, and you want to dock them to the left and the right. It's easiest just to follow along with what I'm providing initially and then modify it for whatever's more comfortable for you as you get more experience with Maya. So I can't use some of the tools. So I can't go and bridge between 2 models that are separated still. So, oh yeah, I'm still on the pivot. That's right. So if I hold down D and move the arrow to the side here and then let go of the left mouse button and then let go of D. Now this is the new pivot point for that arm. Very, very useful. So from that pivot, if I were to rotate down, you'll see the arm doesn't quite reach the lower thigh. That's not too far off though for most people's arms. So if I go to R to scale and I scale out just on the Y, which makes it longer this way, right? If I scale it out on the Z and the Y, RGB equals XYZ, you'll see it'll go out on both axes just a tiny bit. But just something to remember. So I'll just put it out just a tiny bit longer. And then what I'm going to do here is right click, go to object mode, and let's go ahead and mirror this over. So I think it's pretty much ready. Yeah, pretty much ready. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so I'm going to right click, go to object mode, then hit Q, marquee drag, select all of them. Let's hide the other one. We don't need to see the base mesh anymore. Okay, so we grabbed the arm, and if I go to outliner, leg, and torso. And you see it's creating all these extra nodes. It's always driven me nuts. I know I should know by now how to explain this really well, but it's just garbage. So if I grab all three of these and go up here to freeze transformation, this gets rid of all the transformations. And delete history, you see this inputs here. Every single split and edge cut and delete and tweak is recorded in the history of the inputs here. So you want to go up here and delete the history and get rid of all that garbage. So these right here, before I connect them together, it's not a bad idea to keep them as part of the body parts uh, library that we're making, right? So here's a body parts library. So if I go back to the original, these are just the most basic. These are the cylinders that we originally made. And it's good to know what settings we use, 8-sided, 4 subdivisions with a cap of 0 or 1. It's good to know what those are. But after we put a little bit of effort into these, each step of the way, you're welcome to go in here and duplicate them. Control D, edit, duplicate, make a copy, and stow that away on a different layer. Save your steps as you go. So if something gets messed up really bad, you can always go back to a step. Also, it's good to just go in here and grab some of these real quick. Let's say you wanted to make a 4-armed centaur and you had like your base mesh of a horse already done and you just wanted to grab like the upper torso and the arm and the neck and the head. You'll come up with a model kit, a set of parts that you can recombine and get very quick at this process. So I can duplicate all these before I get going here. So let's just take this whole thing here. I guess the torso's out of that group. Let's grab it. To drag the torso into the first biped, I can middle mouse drag. It should go in there. There it is. So now it's part of this group. And Control D. And there we go. So now we have 2 groups here. So I'm just grab this first one, move it out of the way. If you just grab the parent, it should move the other stuff below it. And let's see if that hides. Okay, all of them are on the same layer inside the channel there. So what I could do is go to this layer and I could take this one and remove the selected objects from that layer. So if I hide it, oops, thought I would get all of them. I guess it didn't. It's pretty funny. Right click, remove selected objects. It should just remove them. Okay, there it went. All right, there's first biped layer. So I'm going to continue with that one. And then if I turn all of them off, so that means these new pieces here I just made are not on any of the biped layers. There's nothing in there too, yeah. So go in and make another layer, and we'll call this the second biped layer. And hit save. And so now if I go to that top piece here, the translate's been -1, and that will hide for me. Cool. And I can just click on 0, enter, and we're still at the 0, 0, 0 world axis for this character. First biped 01. And I think I just misnamed these. That's okay. They're just going to move forward with this. Okay, so if I grab all these models and go to the modeling toolkit and hit combine, they're all a single now. And what I can do is come in here and go to vertex mode, and they're all part of the same model now. So there's 2 things, 2 new tools to go through. The first one here is the target weld. You click the vertex you want to weld into the second one, which you go towards, and that will enter that. Now, when I merge these, we have the symmetry tool on, so when we don't have the arms and the legs as symmetrical. So what I have to do here, something you get very comfortable doing, I turn target weld off. And I'm just going to go here and go to tool settings, turn symmetry off for just a moment. Grab one side of the body, delete whatever I didn't quite get on that first quick grab, delete. There we go. And now what I can do here is grab this. It should make the pivot point. down there. It did not. So D makes a pivot point movable, right? D plus V makes the pivot snap to a vertex. The little magnets are right up here. Hover over the top of it. What does that say? Snap to vertex. Snap to grid. Snap to curves. So there's different magnets here for snapping. What you want to do is hold down, you want this pivot to go down the center of the world, 0, 0, 0. That's a grid. So if I hold down D to move the pivot, and I want it to snap to the grid, I hold down X. X will, if I grab that little circle in the middle, automatically drop down and pivot will snap to the grid on the base. Now we go back to freeze and delete history. And that is the new pivot for this. So what happens if we go to edit duplicate special, that uses that pivot in which to flip to the other side. And they are now both the same. And grab those two separate meshes, combine them back together, right click, go to vertex, and grab all the vertices, at least in the middle part. You don't need to grab all of them for the whole model, but at least grab more than what you need for the vertices at the center. And that again is your merge vertices at the thresholds default. And again, the way to test that is twofold. So first thing to do is hit 3, smooth on the keyboard, see if it does anything wonky. Looks pretty good. Go back to 1. The other thing is to go to the vertex, go to the move tool W, grab a vertex at the center and wiggle it a bit and see if it separates. If there's 2, then it will only give you 1 vertex at a time if you single click. And there's 2 vertices sharing the same space. It will separate from them. So we should be good. Now what I can do is go back over to symmetry, I can turn that back on object X and get back to where I was a moment ago, which is using the target weld. So target weld, click on the vertex. Do you want to target 2? And click, snaps right to it. 1, 2, 3. Yep, there's a lot of crotch and armpits when doing bipeds. Those are the 2 most difficult parts, and you spend a lot of time making sure they're just right. Click, drag. Zoom in here, click, drag, and click, drag. And that is it for the legs. Yeah. Now for the arms, rather than use target weld, we're going to use bridge. So for that, I'm going to right click, go to edge, hit Q to get out of the target weld. So Q is select. So I want to make a polygon, or excuse me, a quad in between these 2 edges. Control Shift to add to my selection. There we go. So we go to bridge, click 1 edge, hold on Control plus Shift, this one, and hit bridge. And it automatically connects between the 2. Now, the green means there's no shader on there. So it's making a new quad with no shader on there. So this is kind of a goofy error. It's probably my error, but whatever. Connect between the 2. Yeah, it didn't do it for that one. That's so funny. Control Shift, add bridge. I'm just going to go around, grab the edge, and then Control Shift add to the edge I want to connect to bridge between and hit the bridge button. Isn't that cool? 1, Control Shift, 2, bridge. Control Shift, bridge. It's doing it on the upper part. Wow, very funny. This is something that's gone on for years. There's a rhyme and a reason to it, but I'm not really worried about it. So there we go. So it did bridge the armpit. The armpit's gonna have the most motion. Freedom of movement. It's a non-socketed joint that has the collarbone and the scapula. It's a free floating joint at the armpit, the shoulder, so it can be moved around a lot. So yeah, we're ready. So we could just give it a head and some hands. So let's do something really simple just to get this character done and moved around. So you can extrude faces. You can extrude these faces up into a head. You can also extrude edges down at the ankles and also at the wrists. So let's go ahead and do that.